Good evening. Welcome to Beyond the Gatekeepers. I am Bishop Vanessa M. Brown, and I am your host and moderator for this evening. I am very, very happy to have you here. Those of you that are on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, everywhere we are on social media, X, we say hello, good evening, how are you? We want to check in with you. Want to make sure everybody's doing all right. Please let us know your city and state. We have a wonderful show in store for you on tonight, and we are ready to go. So, tonight, before we go, though, let me bring on Bishop Flunder. Of course, Bishop Flunder is the presiding prelate of the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries. She is the senior pastor of City of Refuge United Church of Christ. Bishop Flunder, always a joy to have you here with us.
Good evening, family. What a joy, always a joy, as Bishop Vanessa said, to be in the company of truth seekers who are definitively shifting the time that we are in right now. Much needed, your opinions, your ideas, your thoughts, and these incredible authors that have been a part of the Gatekeepers for quite some time. And God knows we are moving beyond the people who thought themselves to be the gatekeepers for years and years and years. So we're looking today, particularly to spend some time chatting about the contributions of of women who have often been dismissed and diminished, but to talk about the incredible presence of women in the fight for justice, for equality, for what I would consider righteousness that needs to run down like water and like a mighty stream. And so we have a great author with us today and a great opportunity to continue to discuss in so many ways groups of people that have been put in the shadow but need to be brought to the limelight. It's good to see Bishop Vanessa. We've been having to talk by times like this across these internets, as the old folks call it. But it's good to put my eyes on her and to spend this time also with her. She's an incredible leader. For those of you that don't know that, it's more, so much more even than gatekeepers. Spend a little time looking through and see some of the other things and places that she is. But so I'm just real glad to see her too. Also,
Thank you, Bishop.
God
I
bless each of
appreciate
you.
that. People, tell us where you're from. Reginald Nichols, Bishop Flunder is here, Stockton, California. And he already said he's going to be in Las Vegas in the house with us. Lavinia Bean, Cape May, New Jersey. Chuck Hunt, Monroe, Louisiana is here. Sean Jenkins is in the house, Metro Atlanta area. Sean is faithful as well. Deacon Ryan from Cincinnati, Ohio. Lay Pastor Ronnie Jordan from Rancho Cucamonga, California. Professor Natasha Robinson from Chicagoland. So glad that she's here with us tonight. Reverend Tracy Ruffin is here from League City, Texas. Grateful for that as well. Monique Nelda is here from East Orange, New Jersey. Pastor Siegfried Benton is here from Temple Hills, Maryland. Elder Sharon Gill is here from Philadelphia. Darlene Connell is from Queens. Janetta Speece from Durham, North Carolina. Oh, they are coming in the room. Herbert Jones, bless you. Boston, Massachusetts is in the house. Albert Reed here from Kyleen, Texas. Lakeisha Williams from Macon, Georgia. You see how they all around? Quincy James Reinhardt, I just called your name to Dr. AnnMarie Mingo, Quincy. We're looking forward to seeing you soon. Bless you, brother. Maria Cadell Harris from Denver, Colorado. Diane Rodriguez, pastor in the Central Pacific Conference of the United Church of Christ. Portland, Oregon is here. I am so glad to see all of your wonderful faces. Will Turner Harrington is on Instagram. And I am going to ask everybody that I just called to do us a big old favor and share this conversation tonight. I promise you that we're going to have a wonderful discussion with this wonderful woman of God. And let me just introduce her right now so we can get moving. Tonight we have with us Dr. AnnMarie Mingo. She is the Associate Professor of Ethics, Culture, and Moral Leadership and the director of the Metro Urban Institute at Pittsburgh Theological Seminary. But she is also the author of the book, that I was turned on to by Quincy Reinhardt called Have You Got Good Religion? Black Women's Faith, Courage, and Moral Leadership in the Civil Rights Movement. Dr. Mingo, I am so happy to have you here tonight. Will you please greet our online platform tonight?
I am so excited to be here. So thank you, Bishop Brown. Thank you, Bishop Flunder. Hello to everybody. Facebook, Instagram, X, whatever that is, YouTube, all of the places where you are joining in from. I am loving seeing the names. For some of you who hopped in early on Facebook, I was trying to like your post as you were coming in. Definitely hello to my brother, Quincy James Reinhardt. Thank you so much for making this connection.
Indeed, indeed. I want to just shout out real quick. Chuck Jones is here, Palm Springs, California. Denise Fortson is on with us. Antoine Johnson is here from Stockton. The people are still coming in. If I see your name, I'll shout you out. Dr. Mingo, you wrote this great book. As soon as I saw it, I said, Bishop Flunder is going to fall in love, because one of our conferences, that was our theme. When we did one of our, actually our leadership and our Holy Convocation was called Have You Got Good Religion? And so to see that you have written a book about this, tell me what caused you to write this book, and what is the message that you're trying to relay to the folks that will read it?
Well, so I love the title. I actually held on to this title. So this book comes out of what was my dissertation research initially, and it expands from that. So I took what was basically one chapter in the dissertation and reworked everything and expanded it and deepened it so that it could actually become an accessible book. And so at one point, the dissertation would have been called this, but I said, I'm gonna hold this for the book, because you don't want people searching and finding the exact same thing. Otherwise, why would they buy the book? But for me, the title has within itself a reflexive question. Because if the question is, have you got good religion? We know within our tradition, we've got the certainly Lord as a refrain, but the answer could also be no, right? Because it's a question. It's not you have got good religion, it's have you got it? And so for me as an ethicist, that type of reflexive question was extremely important, and the emphasis on the good. Because where there is good, there could also be something else. And I wanted us to really think through how our movements, particularly the civil rights movement, pushed us towards a greater good, a greater inclusiveness for humanity, human flourishing, abundant life in our language, right? How the work that especially those Black women were doing during that time pushed us as a corrective to the way society was going, right? Because we have to keep in mind, the Klan calls themselves religious too. That ain't good. And that was operating at the same time. So that's a part of how the title makes its way into this space. And then the work really comes out of, and I mapped this out a little bit in the introduction, it comes out of a deep appreciation for my mother's own sacrifice. As small as she might have seen it during the civil rights movement, the courage that she had to go and sit in, despite my grandmother saying, you better not go down there and sit in. And she and my aunt went and did it anyway in Tallahassee, Florida. I always tried to figure out what would make them do that. Because my grandmother did not play the radio, okay? I knew that. And so the fact that they went and risked it, I wanted to know about other women like my mom. And so the other thing for me was, if we look at almost any of our historical images, so you look at a picture from the civil rights movement, you look at a video, watch the Eyes on the Prize documentary or anything like that, you don't just see a singular person. You don't have a movement with a singular person. There were masses of people. And if you look at most of those images, still images or video, you see a lot of women. And I was trying to figure out, but who are they? Sure, we know the kings, right? Sure, we know, the bigger names like the Rosa Parks. If I were to ask anybody, first name they normally call out is Martin Luther King, second name they normally call out is Rosa Parks. We know them, yes. But it wasn't just those individuals that allowed us to have the types of benefits that we have now. So I was trying to understand, who are all these women that I see? Who are all of these young women, teenagers looking like? Who are they? Why did they go do it? And why did they keep doing it, right? You go out there one time, that's one thing. But why did you keep going back, not knowing that success was promised? So that's a big part of why I was doing the work. I wanted to understand if the part of their why was God, Did their understanding of God, their theology, did that push them to do something, their ethics? Was their theology connected to their ethics? That was the root of this project for me.
Powerful. Very, very powerful. 5 powerful chapters. You name Bishop Flunder. She names a lot of people that we know, has interviewed with them. Tracy Blackman, Leslie Callahan. The list goes on and on and
Pamela
on.
Lightsey, like
Aaron
all the
Fletcher,
crew.
Pamela
Yeah.
Lightsey, all the people we know. And what was hitting me now is because of the climate that we're in right now. And these women pop up, justice oriented women. I think about Bishop Flunder as well, the work that she does. And you have a chapter. I want to go there. I'm probably going to try to hit every chapter, but it ain't going to have time. But I do want to go there. First of all, she got her book, right? So before I do that, first, let me just tell everybody, I'm here with Dr. AnnMarie Mingo. This is Beyond the Gatekeepers. The book is Have You Got Good Religion? You're going to want to buy this book. And so all down in the chats and the links, you're going to see where to purchase the book, right? There are several different places. Pastor Sue is going to post that for you. You're going to see that. And then she has been so gracious and kind to give away a book at the end of the evening. So you're going to type hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers so that you can win a copy of the book. But we want to support. All right. So this woman has already hit the ground running, right? She has a long runway, but the book just really dropped Tuesday. And she's already sold over 500 books. So we want to make sure that we support in the ways that we know how to. But because I want to tie Bishop Flunder into this, but I need to ask you, we shall not be moved. Chapter 3, she said, cultivating courageous resistance. Talk to us about that chapter. And then Bishop Flunder, I'm going to let you weigh in right after that.
So this whole thing of courageous resistance, I also have a project that's called the Cultivating Courageous Resistance Project. And some of those same women that you just named that I consider movement pastors of our current Movement for Black Lives era, the Leslie Callahans, the Pamela Lightseys, the number of folks were a part of that project. Because for me, courage is critical to doing any of this work. And I began looking at courage. So at the beginning of this chapter, I note a quote from Maya Angelou. And if you don't mind, I just want to lift this up because this is critical for me for how I'm looking at courage. So Maya Angelou, who a lot of people don't think about her as a civil rights movement activist. They think about her as a poet. Some know her as a dancer. A few know her as an actress, but not as many know her civil rights activism, right? They don't know that she was the leader of the Northern movement for the SCLC, for the Southern Christian Leadership Congress. They don't realize the work that she was doing on the continent of Africa and as a Pan-Africanist, et cetera, right? But so I'm using this quote as one of my key ways of thinking through courage that Maya Angelou offers us. She says, I realize that one isn't born with courage, one develops it. And you develop it by doing small, courageous things in the way that you wouldn't set out to pick up a 100-pound bag of rice. If that was one's aim, the person would be advised to pick up a 5-pound bag, and then a 10-pound, and then a 20-pound, and so forth, until one builds up enough muscle to actually pick up 100 pounds. And that's the same way with courage. You develop courage by doing courageous things, small things, but things that cost you some exertion, mental, and I suppose spiritual exertion. So that quote from Maya Angelou was critical for me in helping people to realize that, as I was describing at the very beginning, what makes somebody go and do a sit-in once? A little bit of courage. Right? And then you've got some more people around you, you build up a little bit more courage, and you might actually do a walk, a protest, you might do something else. And from that, you just keep building and building, and we build momentum enough to actually shift and change our world and society. So this idea of we shall not be moved is because we're going to figure out a way to just keep showing up and keep showing up and keep showing up, and we'll take a different approach and we'll come at it another way, and we'll bring in some more people. Okay, we can't fill up the jails with adults because the adults need to be able to pay the bills. Okay, we'll find another way. We'll bring in the young people. Okay, now we've got too many young people. Well, we'll add some more. They're going to that's a part of how you keep cultivating the courage, because you're bringing more people together in this effort to try to make change. So that's definitely a key part of it for me. But I'm happy to keep talking through aspects of this.
I love that, because you say in Bishop Fund, you go, but you say courage is developed inwardly and performed outwardly. So
Yes.
I love that. I picked that up, and it's kind of just stayed with me. Bishop
Well,
Flunder?
because it becomes a thought, right? You think about,
Absolutely.
I might be able to do something.
Yes.
And then you go do it, right? So
Yes.
it becomes an inward thing before it becomes an outward thing.
That's
and
right.
then building along the way.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Wow. Amen. Praise God. I do think of often the importance of overcoming the potential backlashes before they happen.
Mm-hmm.
The moving toward scripture and experience, it says that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and good sense, a sound mind.
Oh my. Mm-hmm.
I think there's something very powerful about watching that happen. As I've said many times on Gatekeepers, my mother was the first African American to be hired by Bank of America as a teller.
Wow.
And there were a number of people that found that problematic, as you can imagine. Some of them were white people who came to Bank of America. Some of them were Black people who wondered, who did she think she was, essentially? And I think you understand what I'm saying. But it is the something inside so strong, which is our theme for TFAM coming up in our leadership meeting, that I believe the Pettis Bridge reality, where we move toward the danger, knowing that there is danger and that some of the people on the front line may be wounded. They might even be killed, because fear is the thing that is often used to stop us in the process of moving forward. But as we say often on Gatekeepers, it's not the first day of the Pettis Bridge. The power is the second day, when the bandages were on us and we were wounded and we went back.
Anyway.
That's an incredible, and there was plenty of women
Yeah.
in that march, some of which were no-named women, because they were women. That was the whole deal. But bandaged up, they came. There's something very powerful about our history. And we are in that moment again.
Yeah.
We are in that moment where the real effort, which is such a conundrum, and I'd love to hear where you are on this too, such a conundrum to me, to simultaneously diminish people of African descent and people of color, simultaneously diminish the LGBTQI community, particularly our trans people, and simultaneously turn women back into Donna Reed, and working in My Three Sons and Father Knows Best and all of that.
And Leave It to Beaver.
And Leave It to Beaver. This incredible intention that is creating a maelstrom, while Christianity in our nation is losing numbers consistently. There's simultaneously people who call themselves Christian who are trying to, and in all of that, there's a huge diminishing of women, which tends to make me feel like your book shares. It is not because we are not powerful, but because we are scary powerful.
So powerful, exactly, that they will do all of this to try to diminish. And so, like, we think through that for almost everything. Why would they come after our vote? Because it's so powerful. Why would they try to come after our voice? Because it's so powerful. Why would they try to come after our institutions? Because they know, even when we don't realize, that they are so powerful, right? And so that's a part of what I'm hoping people begin to take even from this book, that there are aspects of our culture, of our history, that have the power to actually rechange our world, right? Because that's what happened then. And then we got a little complacent, right? We started fitting in a little bit too much. We thought, okay, we've made it. We don't need to talk about this anymore. I don't want to go back. I don't want my young people to know what I went through. And now we've messed up because they don't know, right? And we don't realize that the fight keeps going. And so the other folks still have that playbook. They are running some of these exact same plays. And if we study history, we can see not just the media images that you're describing, but all of these other policies. They are going backwards, almost running the exact same thing. And so it would behoove us to use some of that same wisdom that we used to have and begin to create the strategy so that we can counter that once again, to not allow fear to silence us. I was asked recently, as I was talking about the book, I was asked by two different people. One asked whether or not if I saw women were silenced, and another something else. And I said, no, actually, it's that our voices are not valued, because very few of us are actually silent. They may not get lifted, we may not get elevated, but we know what to say and we can say it, right? So it takes us finding ways, how do we amplify the real good stuff and not the foolishness, so that we can actually make some change? How do we begin to put people in place? A little bit ago, so I guess this was now last summer, Lamont Wells brought me in with the Lutheran folks. And I was doing some stuff. I did their keynote, and then I later did a workshop. And within that workshop, I tried to have the people start working on a 50-year plan. And they looked at me like I was crazy. I said, no, a 50-year plan. What is the issue that you see in your community that really needs to be changed? And what is your 50-year plan to make that happen? Right? Because then I began to explain to them, that's exactly what just happened with Roe v. Wade. They set a 50-year plan and they got it done in 49, right? That's what happened with our voting rights. They set a 50-year plan and they got it done almost right on time, right? And so when we think about these types of things, we can't get distracted with, oh, they want to try to, okay, sure, they do want to try to take away our rights. And then what's our counter? What's our plan beyond talking, right? Who have we put in place? Who will our attorneys be? If we're not already shaping the young people to learn how to think critically and to make sound arguments so that they can make it into law school and that they are connected enough to the community that when they're there, they actually do good work. Who will our, Congress people be? Who will our city government people be? Who will our teachers be? Who are we training and raising up now who can actually do this work, who are committed to our values, who understand the importance of it, who can walk that history through and then say, yep, I understand it, and this is where we're going. So I think I've walked around your question in a little bit, Bishop, and I can come back to it, but those are my initial thoughts.
That's so right. All of that is just blessing my whole socks.
Absolutely. I think you did a good job at that. Really quickly, Sherilyn, Lawan, Reverend Kimberly Scott, I see you. God bless you all. Thank you for joining. Lorna Blake, Garrett Gunnershaw, Edwina Perez Santiago, Lakeisha Williams, thank you all for being here. Now, Dr. Mingo, again, you touch base on two people that I love to read about, and I love their history and what they have done in the movement, because it's still a movement, right?
Yes. We still have issues. Somebody is in the chat saying, are we in trouble? You know we in trouble.
Absolutely. 100%. Because like, you know why?
We don't. Trouble do you want to focus on, Brother Jones? That's
absolutely.
The thing, right?
We still haven't told people what's next. What's the plan? We keep talking about all the complaints, but what is the plan? What is the next move?
Yeah, so this is my thing. I think a lot of times we are looking for that singular plan. Mm-hmm. And one of the myths around the civil rights movement is that it was singular in focus.
No, it's multiple.
And it never was.
That's right.
And so we are multifaceted people.
Yes.
Who can focus on more than one thing at a time. We do need to be focused on voting, but we also need to be focused on healthcare, and we also need to be focused on access to housing, and we also need to be focused on schools, right? But we can have different people who are doing that focus. That's right. And so find the thing that is that you are most passionate about, and get some more people around you. See who's already doing the work. You're not out here coming up with this idea for the first time. We already been in trouble. Somebody's working on it. Go stand alongside them and help them do that work. So one of the other things that I often hear, we need to be like it was in the civil rights movement time. Everybody was together. Well, no, everybody together.
No, they weren't.
I've never seen numbers over 20-something% of active people.
Come on.
Some 80-something% were not. They could have been scared, and rightfully so. I mean, people were dying. Other people didn't think it was going to actually be able to make a difference, so they didn't do anything. And then others didn't really know. But my focus is I ain't worried about the 80. Who are the 20? Who's actually doing something? Who can we support who's actually doing something. So
Yes.
figuring out what it is and getting started, not waiting, getting started,
Yes.
even if it's a small task that you do. Show up at the city government meeting, figure
Yep.
out what the process is, say one
Yes.
question, and that's a start, right?
Yes.
There's something else
As go ahead,
for me,
Bishop. Go ahead.
one little piece of it, and I make the comparison between fast food and slow cooked food.
Mm.
Well,
Because we've become sort of fast food oriented, if you understand what I mean. And it's never really been good for us, but we've added it to our lives because of a lot of other things that we've added to our lives. Just go ahead and get it right quick. And there's something very different about slow cooked food. It takes time. You got to shop first. That's the way my grandmother did. You shop first, and she hand-picked the onions, and she hand chose the potatoes, and then it took almost all day. Right after breakfast, she was getting ready to prepare dinner. Some things had to be cut up and stirred up, and I have a memory of her sitting in the kitchen with a big Pyrex bowl, creaming her sugar and butter to get ready for a real pound cake.
Yes.
A real pound cake took her hands. She used her hands, and she moved it around and she moved it around. I use that and say that to us because we are somewhat inclined now to be fast food in our thinking about civil rights and our rights. We want something, to your point, to happen quickly, and we want it to happen not only right now, but almost where somebody else is making it happen. It's somebody other than me. It's the combination of a quick change and somebody else doing it. Both of those things, what you're saying to us, Dr. Mingo, both of those things are problematic if we are really going to shift the atmosphere.
Absolutely.
We still got to cream the butter. You understand what I'm saying? And take the time to do what needs to be done to really make the difference that needs to be made. And you are so right. It's not a fast food time. This is not the tennis shoes that are the most important to buy this year, and then you throw them away and you get another pair of tennis shoes next year because somebody's initials are on them and such. This is not that time. This is the time where we are going to have to take the time to prepare to shift this entire atmosphere. And some of us will die in the process. Not because we're being killed, it's because the process takes a long time at times. But the process has to be thought through such that it will have long, far-reaching. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And the other thing is, though, at times it takes both. Because there are aspects of the civil rights movement that there's an article I write about just laws and unjust laws and how things operated. And there was this two-pronged approach where some things were this almost shock troop way of going in and creating some type of something tension. And then the other was this longer term way. So you can think about that as the SNCC sit-in folks who were doing things as more of the shock troops, and then the legal defense fund of the NAACP.
I see you.
More long term. You know what I'm saying? We need both. We need both. Because the other thing is, we actually don't know. And this, I love that you're mentioning this part, Bishop, that we've gotten too accustomed to wanting it to happen quickly and wanting somebody else to do it. When we think through the wisdom of the civil rights movement, a part of this is that they didn't know. Nobody knew this thing was going to be successful. How do you start out on day one of a Montgomery bus boycott? They only planned on one day, right? So when Rosa Parks gets arrested on December 1st, they say, oh, her court date is December 5th. Let's stay off the buses on that one day.
Yeah.
After that was successful, they vote that night and decide to continue. But continue for how long? They didn't know it was going to take 381 days.
Yes.
Right? Which is also why this becomes an everyday type of commitment. Recognizing that, okay, I got another day. Okay, I got another day. We do have a goal, which is a part of it, right? So for me, there are times when I wonder if the desire for this to be microwavable, fast-paced is because we aren't clear about the goal. Because if we're clear about the goal, we know it's going to take longer than a minute.
Yes. And we thought we'd made it.
Thought we made it.
Didn't we? Didn't we think that what it is that we came through and the things that we actually accomplished, that well, now I can rest back on my laurels? We are here. I can assure you, my young people in at City of Refuge and throughout TFAM never expected a redo
Right.
of what it is that we're experiencing right now. We thought it was etched in concrete, Bishop Vanessa, etched in concrete, and just that quickly.
Well, and so quick is relative.
Yeah,
because they had a 50-year plan.
Right.
So to us, it feels like, oh my gosh, they just took it. But if you look at how they've been stacking,
they played the long game.
played the long
Yeah.
game. And someone else.
The other thing is you mentioned SNCC, and I have to come to it because, you know, SNCC wasn't always on the same page as King.
Oh, absolutely.
They were a younger demographic, right? King was doing this whole nonviolent approach, and SNCC was like, they was Black Lives Matter even back then. That was SNCC, right? And so history is repeating itself. So I think that people know the direction they want. They know where the end goal, but the planning to get to the end goal is what I think that we are all trying to figure out even right now.
Yeah. And I wonder if we actually know end goals, plural.
Well, I hope so. Maybe it's multiple end goals.
Right. And it could be multiple, but I don't know that we've been able to articulate it.
Yeah.
Such that we have people who are actually doing the work, right? If we
Yes.
know that, if we can get beyond saying, well, I just want to be able to, I don't know that that's the end goal for us as a community, right? For us to be able to.
That's right.
But what is the we? Which is the thing that keeps coming up for me all the time. There's a whole lot of folks out there that look just like me.
Yep.
But we're not we.
You know we not.
All you know, all skin folks ain't our kin folks. So yeah, I get you.
And while that is true, they will still benefit from those of us who do this work.
100%.
Because if we get it, I mean, and that's a part of my womanist, ways of being too, right? That I am looking for the survival and wholeness of all people.
Of all.
And so once that can happen, then it's going to benefit those who want to be connected to us and those who don't understand that they are actually a part of a struggle and those who don't, right? So you can think through a Fannie Lou Hamer who is like, I don't care what, we all in the same boat now.
Exactly.
We're all in the same boat now. And when we can find a way to actually do the stuff to break some of these, I mean, y'all already, some of the satanic foolishness that's been falling on us. Once we can break through some of that, it helps not only us, but everybody.
Yes.
Part of the challenge, though, is that we've got some people who have connected themselves to what they see as power, and they don't want to actually make any shifts that would keep them from getting closer to those aspects of white power. And that we don't talk about enough. I feel like Reverend David Moore, who I know, he was one of my pastors.
He's there.
Harbor.
He's on. He's on.
He was putting something here. I didn't get his full quote or his full piece, but looking at how we might be afraid of moving forward because we are going to lose some of the things that we think are the actual prize, when in reality, those might be the things that are limiting us from actually making the change so that our full communities can get free. Right. So if they dangle enough little shiny things for a few people to think that they've had the prize, then we don't talk about the issues. We don't figure out how to actually make things better. And then we're stuck or we're going backwards while they're actually doing all of these other plans.
Dr. Mingo, he says, I feel Zionism is providing African Americans a devious sense of righteousness. We are afraid to move forward because we might lose our jobs, contracts, and popularity, etc. Maybe even our religion. That is what David Moore said.
And look at the salaciousness that's in online right now, where Black people are abusing Black people. And let me just say that, and creating situations that have to do with sex and intimacy that don't exist. It just makes people go to those pages and keep reading and keep listening and keep listening and keep reading. And I got so frustrated with it the other day. I said, all of this is smoke and mirrors, but it wouldn't do as well as it does getting out there if folks didn't keep showing up for it over and over and over and over and over again. What is that thing? that likes this kind of hateful rhetoric that
Yeah.
is sometimes out there, and I mean now among us,
Yeah, absolutely.
not from other
There's an
people.
appetite that is being, yeah. So yes.
You understand
Mhm.
precisely what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. I want to ask you, well, first of all, let me just say hello to Pastor Wilfred Moore and Pastor Terry Chan, Elder Boaz, Bishop-elect Kevin, Bishop-elect Dorothy Harris Paris, Carol Jackson, Lady Joyce Braden. They have all joined us, and thank you all for being here with us tonight. You talk about Ella Baker, these are the two women, and Dr. Prathia L. Hall
Yes.
as moral exemplars in your book.
Yes.
And Ella Baker,
You don't have this
powerful
work
woman.
without her.
Yeah, you can't do it. We who believe in freedom
That's right.
cannot rest
Not rest.
until it comes.
Mhm.
Hallelujah.
And whoever wrote the song or whoever really quoted that lyric or whatever it was, they knew exactly what they were talking about.
So they take
Because
it from a speech, right? So they take it
yes,
from a speech that Miss Baker does, and this is Sweet Honey in the
yes,
Rock, right?
yes,
And so you've got Bernice Johnson Reagan, who is
yes,
doing the writing. She was one of the SNCC singers before she
yes.
found Sweet Honey in the Rock, and she's coming out of that Albany movement. And
Mm-hmm.
so you've got her as a part of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which was set up, by Miss Baker. And
Yes,
as it was done, she has this idea of participatory democracy, which is not this
yes,
hierarchical system, but one where we can be on the same plane. And so that was one of the big distinctions between SNCC and most of the other civil rights movement organizations, the big six you might
absolutely.
consider. And so, but the
Yes,
other thing the reason that I start with her, so Miss Baker, as most of the young people at that time, now our elders, would call her, she had been active since the 20s and 30s. So she had
yes,
longevity in this game. And it was her connections that allowed those SNCC workers to be able to go into certain parts of the South because of the work that she had done when she was in the national office of the NAACP, helping to set up all of those different chapters within the South for the NAACP. But she also had the wisdom to recognize what organizing really looks like, and coming
yes,
into the communities and coming alongside people and not coming in as the quote unquote savior. So she critiques King on many sides,
yes,
right?
she does.
And I mean, she also is one of the persons who helps to found what we have as the SCLC, but we've also got Bayard Rustin, and we've also got, James Levinson. So we've got, this Jewish man, this openly Black gay man, and this woman who found the organization that King ends up getting all of his stuff from.
Yes.
Don't start me going down some of those paths.
It's the truth, but I'm so glad that we're talking about it in this way, because this is so powerful. Because I think that people, when I talk to some young kids or whatever, of course when they go to school, who do they cover? They only cover Martin Luther King.
Wait,
Jr.
and they only cover
The kids,
a certain aspect of King.
that's correct.
They don't
But
even
they don't know
read that whole
anything about Ella Baker.
That's right.
They don't
They
know
don't.
anything about some of these people here.
That's right.
They just know the picture that they want to paint. So
That's it.
yes,
Because he died.
Right.
That
Yeah.
dying thing, and we have said and say now, if Martin had not been killed, this is the truth, the probability of the holiday in the streets and the schools and all of what has been named after him, he died and he was young. He was a boy to me.
He was
Age
39, right?
Yes, right.
Yeah.
And it is amazing. It is amazing to me what likely would have happened if Ralph David Abernathy had been able to tell what he was trying to tell on Martin, and Martin had been alive, if you understand what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
But it is that we become less problematic when we die.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I know you understand what I'm trying to say.
Oh, absolutely.
He was less problematic, and it could be said that now we have opened up our hearts as a nation to enshrine this great civil rights leader, but it's because he's dead, not just because he did good things, because many of the names that we have called were the power movers for that time. But that dying, it sanctifies you in an interesting way. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, so at the time when he's killed, he's on this list of some of the most hated man in America. So clearly, this would not have happened. But the other aspect to this, because I want to bring it back to the women, we have this holiday because Coretta Scott King worked 15 years to make sure that
Come
it
on now, say that.
right?
Yes.
We have the center in Atlanta because Coretta Scott King decided, I'm going to make sure that you all know these 6 principles of nonviolence. You're going to
Yes,
know,
ma'am.
I'm going to do this work. I'm going to get this money. I'm not going to stop until it happens. Right. And so we have to also lift her up.
That's
And to know her story. So her book is one of my favorites, actually, because
Yes.
we get to learn her from her view. She was like, yeah, there was the Mrs. King, but there was also Coretta.
Yes.
All
And
of
Who was an extraordinary singer.
and was not a side chick. She was not a side chick.
She was also an activist. So she
Exactly.
was an anti-war, nonviolent activist before she met him.
That's right.
She has a long history of that
That's
before they even meet, right? So she pushes him in some
Yes,
areas when he wasn't even really ready. And that's
Yes.
important for us to know. So when even if we want to talk about the Kings, let's talk about them both.
How
Right?
about
That's right.
Let's talk about
I
her as
like
a
it.
feminist because
That's
we
right.
don't know her as Coretta King. She was clear. I am Coretta Scott King. You're
That's
going to
right.
name all of my parts, right?
That's
Yes,
right.
that's
Those
right.
are choices.
And she was good at reading them too. That
Yeah,
part about
she
she was good at that.
as Lady Joyce pointed out, she had a life before King,
Absolutely.
Yes.
a big
Absolutely.
life.
Yes.
She was
Big
doing
life.
a
And
lot of
after
things.
him.
She was well known.
Mm-hmm.
And she actually, so she also writes about feeling that she had a call to ministry, but that she
Yes.
didn't
Yes.
think that both of them could do it. Right. So again,
Mhm.
I encourage folks to please go and read her book. It came out
Mhm.
posthumously, but it's amazing to hear it
Yes.
from her
Absolutely.
lens.
Beautiful.
Yeah, to just really be able to lift her up on her own.
Beautiful.
So yes, we talked about Ella Baker. I want to come back to Prathia Lynn Hall.
Please.
Yes,
She was the
please.
other one that you were lifting up. And
Mhm.
so Ella Baker, I have as my first moral exemplar, but then Prathia Lynn Hall,
Yes.
I have as my second, right?
Yes, you
Because
do.
he's connected to freedom faith. So within Have You Got Good Religion, Black women's faith, courage, and moral
Mm.
leadership in the
Mm.
civil rights movement, I'm lifting 3 virtues,
Mhm.
Yes.
virtue ethics. And so freedom faith is the first of them.
Yes.
Courageous resistance is the second, and then theomoral imagination. And so
Mhm.
for freedom faith, I take that from the language that Prathia Hall uses. And she's drawing that language from the people in Southwest Georgia. And so she's born and raised up in Philadelphia. She's got her own activist background. She's got the things that she's doing, with the Friends Society and some of the other nonviolent work that she's doing as a high schooler. She wants to do more as a college student. And her dad is like, you do this stuff up here in the Northeast, but we're not going to let you go to the South. When her father dies, she tells her mama, now I'm headed South. And so she does. And she makes this commitment, barely finishes temple. That's kind of shaky. Because she was like, I'm going to go and do this work. I'm going to go and help. And I want to make that link back to King because we're getting this narrative quite a bit more now where we know that it is in the praying that not only Prathia Hall, but there was another sister that was also praying with that refrain of, I have a dream, I have a dream. And so we know that King actually said, I'm about to take this thing when he was in the car going back to
With
the airport.
Mahalia. Mhm.
No, he tells Prathia Hall.
Oh, he took her piece of her sermon. That's right.
This is a part of a prayer. It was a refrain and a
Mhm.
prayer that she was doing in Albany, right? And so this part
Mhm.
of Southwest Georgia. Then he says, I'm going to take this and use it. He does. We
Mhm.
know that he uses it in Detroit. Then we
Yep.
know that Mahalia reminds him of that
Tell him about that
August
dream.
28th,
Mhm.
1963, while he's there, when he's fluttering, right? So what he has is his written remarks. He kind of stumbles a little bit. And she says, tell him about the dream. And all of that is off script. But that is
Yes.
off script because it gets anchored in him because of a Prathia Lynn Hall.
That's
The
right.
Yeah.
woman that he says, that's the one person I don't want to follow behind in the pulpit.
Mhm. He
She
did
was
say
that
it.
powerful.
She could
Right.
preach.
She
For
could preach.
sure.
But she was
Yeah.
also an ethicist, right?
Yes.
And so that's a part of why I use her. She was a pastor, she was an
Mhm.
ethicist, she was an activist. And so
Yeah.
she becomes a great person for us to look to
Yes.
for that type of freedom faith. And she's again drawing it from the people who are like, you may do all of this stuff, but I'm gonna still go down there and I'm gonna let God take me there and I'm gonna let God bring me back. I'm gonna try
Mhm.
to register.
Yeah. She
That's
had
beautiful.
Philadelphia on fire. For sure.
I love that. If I perish, I perish.
If I perish, I
Yeah.
perish.
Yeah.
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 So one more, if we can, let's talk a little bit about chapter 5. Which side are you on?
Good.
A Theology of Movements for Liberation, and you use Bree Newsom
Yes.
Mhm.
Bass. Bree Newsom Bass. Let's not leave that last name out. Choosing a Religion of Freedom and Justice.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So as my last moral exemplar, so in that last chapter, I bring it into our more contemporary moment. Because one of the things for me is I don't want people to think, oh, well, that happened a long time ago. What's the application from those historical moments in our contemporary time? And so that's why in that last chapter, and I'm doing this theology of movements, I walk through some of our people that you've lifted up, the Tracy Blackmans, the Leslie Callahans, et cetera. And so as this moral exemplar, I said, well, who could be the person? And when you look at what Bree Newsom Bass does as she climbs up that flagpole to go and remove the Confederate flag, she talks through how she goes through this period of fasting and praying, right? How she reaches out to her sister, her prayer warrior, ahead of time to prepare her. She does physical preparation, but she talks about the spiritual preparation that she does before going up. We also have the recordings of her quoting scripture going up and coming down, right? And so when we think about the courage, the faith, the imagination to see and envision something that doesn't quite exist, she gets that all wrapped up together into this theology of movement that we can then say, okay, if I'm going to go do something, who are my prayer warriors? Who's praying for me? Right? Who's preparing me physically? Who's preparing me spiritually? What are the verses that I don't get to carry a Bible with me or pull out my Bible app? What do I have on the inside of me? That as I'm going up and coming down and whatever thing I'm trying to go after, I can have God's strength with me. So that's a part of what's happening there with Bree Newsom Bass as I read her actions.
I want to give the audience an opportunity to ask you some questions, Dr. Mingo. I want to remind everybody that we want you to purchase this book. You should see down in the chat where you can purchase the book. We also want to remind you that we're going to do a book giveaway tonight. And if you put hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers, you have an opportunity to win a copy of the book. And so we really want to push this book. We want to push the sale of this book. We want people to really purchase. This is great, great information on women being lifted up at a time when folks didn't really want women to be lifted up. And as you said, they weren't really silenced. They just weren't, their voices weren't valued.
Yeah.
Right? Because they always had something to
You can't
say.
deny them, right? You can't look
Right.
at a single picture and figure, oh, they never. Yes, they did. We don't have a
Yeah.
movement without the women. The
That's
other
right.
thing that I've done as I'm looking forward to seeing whatever questions pop up is that we've been talking about the exemplars that I use in the book, and those are the
Yes.
most well-known people that I use.
Mm-hmm.
But the massive portion of the book are what I call everyday women, people that
Yes.
are not known, right? And I name them because I
You
want
do.
them to be, right? So these
Yes.
are women that I found at the various churches that I did some of the interviews with. So Big Bethel AME in Atlanta, Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, Abyssinian Baptist Church in Harlem, and First AME Bethel Church in Harlem. I didn't want people to think this was only a Southern movement. So I went and did
Yes.
research also in the North. I'm gonna make my way to the West and the Midwest. But for this project, this is where we were, because I don't want people to get this little small narrative together.
Yes.
But
I like
within
it.
these everyday women, they could be us. They really could be us. And that's a big part of what I wanted to be able to showcase, is that it takes the people who decide at 5 years old, I'm gonna go taste that water over there that says whites only. And I know I'm probably gonna get in trouble for it, but I'm gonna taste it. And then once she tasted it and realized, oh, it's exactly the same, then she realized, well, they're not any better than us. So I can keep, it shifted something for this woman at 5, that she could then see, well, God got me created the same way. This is the same stuff. That's their foolishness, basically, is what she says. That's the AnnMarie translation. But basically, that's what she ends up saying.
I like it. Okay, you do have a question, Professor Natasha Robinson from Chicagoland. She said, what is the one step you would recommend that everyday people can take to engage in everyday activism?
Yeah. I don't know that there's just one, but one thing that I would think of, and thank you so much for this question, Natasha, and also thank you for sharing it. I saw that you tagged me as you were sharing this discussion for tonight, is to find something that matters to you. I'm the ethics professor at Pittsburgh Theological Seminary. I have my students right now. I was giving some feedback earlier this evening. They are writing policy statements as a part of their final project about an issue that matters to them in their community, right? And so figure out what is the one thing that you care enough about to try to do something about it. And then figure out what can you do. A part of this, you begin to think through a sort of hermeneutic circle of what's the history of this thing so that I understand what I'm up against. What are some of the sort of opportunities and challenges? Who are the people that I need to enroll? How can I begin to make this step? But to not think of it as I've got to do it all at once. Figure out what your one thing is that you are committed to being, that matters to you enough that you will actually try to do some change. And then within that, which is something that I've been noting a few times tonight, go figure out who else is already doing it. We don't need to be, this lone person out here trying to do it all on our own. That doesn't make any sense. Somebody else is concerned about this. You are not alone. Find that person or those persons and come alongside them so that we can actually have some impact with the work. Bring your own gifts to what they're already doing. You might have a wonderful gift, Madam Attorney, of being able to break down legal terms in a way that helps us to understand what's really going on. That's necessary for some aspect of this. Somebody else may have the gift of saying, you know what? My mouth is a little too slick to be up there saying something, but I can make sure that when y'all get back from whatever thing that you need to go and speak at, I've got some food for you, right? I was praying for you while you went, praying for you when you came back. That's a part of the everydayness that I also try to walk through. Because what I don't want people to get confused about is that it needs to be the big thing. We need all of the things.
That is right.
One of the women, or actually a few of the women, but one that I'm thinking of right now, Miss Bessie Smith-Sellaway, she recalls very clearly. She said, well, Martin and his brother AD would tell us, if you can't be nonviolent, you need to go do something else. You go pray, you go raise money for us, you make sure we've got some food or something, because that was their thing. My piece is, whatever it is that you can do, go do that. We need it all. For the people who are on the front lines, they need to know somebody has their back. Right? They need a soft place to land when they get back. Create that soft place if that is your gift. But it all is for the work at the end of the day. So hopefully that's helpful. Find your one thing that you care about enough to do something, align with some people who are already doing it, and then bring your gifts to that work so that we can actually see some change.
So I love the work and the words that you just gave about your students, and they are now writing policy as it relates to that, because we need more of that.
Absolutely.
I told them
and
Sunday
about this is the work that we need to do.
Yes, Sunday was Trans Day of Visibility, and they've got 536 bills, anti-trans bills. So many of them have gone, to be passed, but they were able to kill a lot of those bills because people stood up and started writing policy and saying, hey, you cannot do this.
Yeah.
Well, you cannot do this here, in this state, because, every state is different. You can't do this here in this state.
And so this is a part of as I was giving feedback to the students, because we still have a few weeks before the final. And so I staggered the assignment. So let me see it early. Let me give you some feedback. I was asking them, at what stage are you trying to do this? Is this local? Will this be for the city that you're in? Are you trying to change a state policy? Because all of that matters as you now go and try to figure out the research so that you can structure it right. But another thing that I've mentioned this evening is that we got to start showing up at these meetings. Like, you don't know that a bill is coming up if you're not showing up. And they count on that. They count on us not being there. They count on us not asking questions. They count on us not holding anybody accountable. They count on us. They know that they can come, show up at our churches during election time and never come back. They can count on that. That's on us. We've got to figure out, how do we begin to show up? How do we create report cards that they got to come back? Look, you got to see on that, brother. You got to see on that, sis. That you told, this is what we needed you to do and you didn't do it. So now we will be showing up until you get it right. Yes. That's a part of what we stopped doing, because we used to put that kind of pressure on folks. Now we don't do that as much, but we have an opportunity to do a little bit more of that.
Yes. I agree. Especially when they look like us.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And which is also, that goes back to when I was trying to map out this 50-year plan. Because what ends up happening is that we get people who don't know and understand our history enough so that when they're in those positions, they don't realize that they still need to be making change. They aren't committed
Yes.
enough to us. So we can't just let any and everybody get up there just because they have some aesthetic features that may resemble ours.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We need to make sure that they are committed to the same causes, right?
To
That
the
they've
same
got a
causes.
core that is anchored in creating change for the rest of us. If not, they're just going to be doing it for themselves. And that does not help us
That's
because
right.
we know that the other folks will say, yeah, but they already have X number of people who are doing your work and not ours, right? So we have to figure out how do we actually hold them accountable.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Listen, I want to encourage everyone to please purchase the book. I want you to purchase the book. That's right, Bishop Sonia. I said it, and welcome to Beyond the Gatekeepers tonight. Yeah, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. I said it earlier.
Oh,
It's
it's the
true.
truth.
It is very, very true. And something that we just said earlier, just to try to get all of us on the same page, sometimes it's very difficult,
Mhm.
right? But I am very happy to know that people are really, really moving forward to make change. They know that this election is coming up, but not just this election, but they know they local elections they were participating. They were participating in, just watching Facebook and so many other people say, oh, I'm at the polling site. I'm at the polling site tonight. I'm working the polls tonight.
Yeah.
That's important. One of the other things that we could do, and I was working with Interfaith of America, is that, we can be poll chaplains, and you don't have to be a preacher to be a poll chaplain.
Right.
You don't have to be a deacon to be a poll chaplain. You don't have to have a title to be a poll chaplain, to be able to work with people, to encourage people, to let people know it's okay, and all of those things. So there are so many things that we can do. If you can't write policy,
Right.
and you can't write a letter to Congress, then you can go and be a poll chaplain.
Well, now
So
listen, we can all write a letter now. We can
yeah,
get a
well,
form letter and sign an X if you got to, right? We can do there are things that we can do, right? And I don't
Yeah.
want us to cede our power, right? I want to say this for real because I don't
No,
want us
sure.
ceding our power and thinking
Absolutely.
that it has to be the big things because there's data behind this stuff, right?
Right.
So they calculate if I receive one letter, I know that that is about equal to this number of people having this same thought. If I receive a
Yes.
phone call, I know this extrapolates to this number of people having this concern. We got to write
Yes.
the letters. We've got to place the calls. We've got to figure out those types of strategies. And again,
Gotta do
not
it.
everybody is the one to show up, but we can begin to start educating people around how to actually move the levers that can get
Yes.
us some of the change that we need.
Absolutely. One more question.
I see a thing from Quincy.
Quincy James Reinhardt says, you discussed with Dr. Jones Quarles the cover of your book. Can you share it with us here?
Yes.
Absolutely. So I think that my book cover is gorgeous. And you cannot tell me otherwise. Y'all see it? You see
Yeah,
all
I love it. It's great.
so I actually had the artwork commissioned. And the artist is James Killings Jr. He's out of the Atlanta, Georgia area. And I sent him the introduction chapter of my book, and I sent him some images from the Library of Congress so that there would be some, historical context. He read my introduction and then painted this picture. And we sort of went back and forth as he was doing it. So he would send me a video and say, okay, so right in this area, I'm planning to add some of this. And right in this area, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. And so we had some changes that were happening. At one point, the ground was brown. Now, at one point it was purple, then it was brown. And I was like, no, take it back to purple. Because for me, that then anchors it in a womanist color.
Yes.
So that the book itself and the women's feet are anchored in womanism. And then I also didn't want to use a picture that was already known. So had I put an Ella Baker on there, people would be like, oh yeah, I already know Ella Baker. I don't need to read that. Right? Oh, I already know Fannie Lou Hamer. I know about her. I don't need to read that. But by having this as original work that you can't recognize any faces because these are made up people that are illustrative of that moment, you actually might find yourself in it. So when I got the first cover and I sent it to my parents, because my parents are in their 80s, but I'm gonna let them see stuff first. My mom said, oh, I would probably be right over there. And she pointed to a place on the picture. And I was like, that's exactly what I want. Because I want us to be able to see ourselves in this work, to not think that it was only the big names, but that you, me, all of us could be a part of this. And so that's why I designed the cover in this way. I had a really clear vision for what I wanted. I didn't want the press to just give me something generic. I wanted us to see ourselves as potentially a part of this stuff so that we could read and learn more and then put it into praxis.
Excellent.
Thank you so very, very much. Such a powerful conversation. Thank you all for joining us. We have two housekeeping things that we want to let you all know, two announcements that Bishop Flunder is going to make. We're going to go right after that, right to the drawing for the book. So make sure you are putting in hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers right now, all one word. Y'all know how I go. The algorithm will not pick up anything else but hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers. If you leave the S off, it's not going to pick it up. If you leave anything off, it's not going to pick it up. But hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers is how it's going to pick up if you want to win this book. All right, Bishop Flunder.
Well, thank you, everyone, for being a part of this conversation. Powerful, pithy, important, timely. We're encouraging you to continue to support Beyond the Gatekeepers. If you have not supported Beyond the Gatekeepers financially, fiscally, make this the first time, and hopefully the first time of many times, that you support. If you know anything about the work that needs to be done in order to continue the ability to broadcast, you know that, as old folks said, we can't do it on love and air pudding. It takes the kind of commitment, fiscal commitment, that many of you have given both in the past and some are just recently. But Beyond the Gatekeepers needs your support by sending a donation via Cash App to $TFAM annual or to PayPal at www.paypal.me/TFAM Justice. We're encouraging you. Help us to continue to grow and expand. God bless. Want to also encourage you to save the date. The Fellowship of Affirming Ministries, August 5th through 10th, we're coming to Las Vegas, Nevada. And our theme, taken from the work in so many ways done in South Africa, that moved Nelson Mandela from prison to president. And the theme song for that entire movement was Something Inside So Strong. The real question that we have, and that we're going to be spending some time talking about, is what is the something inside so strong in us that will enable us to move from this perilous, at times, time that we are in, to the place where the Spirit of God and righteousness and justice really does run down like water and like a mighty stream. Something inside so strong that needs to come from the rear all the way to the front of our hearts, of our religion, of our families, of our work in justice. Something inside so strong. Join us August 5th through the 10th at the Palm Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada. God bless you.
Okay, family. I know you've done what we've asked. You put hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers in, and you're going to win your book on tonight. And so Pastor Sue is going to make it happen for us. Deacon Marlene C. McLaurin from Unity Fellowship Church of Baltimore, of where is the church? Okay, I can't remember, but it's Unity Fellowship Church. Bishop-elect Dorothy Harris Parris is the pastor of the church, and we say congratulations to you tonight for winning, Deacon Marlene. We appreciate you so very much. We're excited for you, and do me a favor, go to the Beyond the Gatekeepers page in our inbox and make sure that you put your full name and address so that I can get that information off to Dr. Mingo. Thank you, everyone, tonight for watching us. Dr. Mingo, will you have anything else that you would like to say?
Thank you again for this opportunity, Bishop Brown, Bishop Flunder. It has been a pleasure to be here on Beyond the Gatekeepers, and the chat was just moving tonight. So I love that the folks were so engaged. I do want to just say, if you buy the book, please read it. Right? Please don't
Absolutely.
let this be something that just sits on your shelf. I intentionally wrote it. It's an academic book, but I wrote it
It
in an
is.
accessible way. And
Mhm.
that was important to me. I figured if Miss Bessie, who I interviewed, couldn't read and understand it, I'd done something wrong. So please don't just buy it, read it. And then encourage somebody else to get it. I'd love to hear back from you. You know, you can reach out to me, AnnMarie Mingo, most things, or Have You Got Good Religion? We're on Facebook, on Instagram. I'm responding back to people. If you've got questions about what you're reading, if you know somebody that we should be featuring, please go do that. Let me just say this. Many of our women are still with us, not many, but some are. They're still with us. Go interview them. You know
Yeah.
somebody in your home church, find out their story. Don't let it make its way to the grave. I was chasing the grave for most of what I was doing because some of the women I interviewed are no longer with us. Please go get their stories, learn from them, and then apply it. So whatever you read, apply. Whatever you learn from these folks, apply. Find the faith, the courage, and the imagination to see something that doesn't exist yet, but to know that God is giving you the ability to go and do it and make our world better for everybody.
Beautiful.
And one more thing too. Although this is an academic book, I do feel like this book should be taught in freedom schools. I do
Absolutely.
feel like kids need to hear this. They need to know this. They need to be a part of it. They need to know that something existed before them and something is still happening. And it was great women that created it, and that they stand on the shoulders of those great women.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I wrote it for that very reason, honestly.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
Especially in those states where this kind of work would be banned.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Let's do it in our churches and in our organizations in community. Yes.
I learned my stuff in my church, Mount
Me
Olive
too.
Church, 721 Southeast 8th Street in Gainesville, Florida. They weren't,
See?
I'm from Florida. They were
That's
never
right.
teaching this stuff in Florida. This
That's
is
right.
I learned it in church.
Yes,
And now
ma'am.
they want to ban everything that they can in Florida.
Yep.
That's also because we haven't been doing our stuff. That it should have
Right.
never gotten to this
It
point. We
should
should have been
never
I
have
hear
happened.
you.
should have
You're
never
right.
gotten to this point.
You're right. Yes,
Thank
amen.
y'all. Yes and amen. Thank y'all
Yes,
for
and
watching
amen.
Beyond the Gatekeepers. Have a wonderful
Thank
evening.
you so
God
much.
bless you. Good night.
God bless everyone.